Hey, 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 happy Tuesday, everybody! My dog's getting excited too. He's coming in for the show. Go on, Porter. I hope everybody's having a good day. I hope that it is seeming a little bit more normal, or you're understanding how to manage what's happening right now. So today I want to talk about your knees, more so in regards to downhill. So a lot of people talked last week about how their knees were really affected in downhill and wanted a little bit more tips about exercises they could do to help them. And so last week we talked about our hip hinge and how important that is for our bodies and for decreasing stress on our backs, decreasing stress on our knees, and just helping us flow a little bit better, especially for downhill. Now, when it comes to our knees for downhill as well, there's some other things that regard to that, and it involves the hip hinge. But it goes a little bit more deeper, like one step further. So I brought my bike up here. This time I don't have the bucket. I remember that I have a manual machine and I can just stash my bike in that and it supports it so I don't fall over. So you climb on this guy. So when we talk about knees and downhill position, it's important to understand how knees function and work. So a knee functions, it gets straighter. So if I'm going to go straighter with my knee, then typically my quad has to work. And my quad, the muscle contracts, gets shorter, and then it pulls on the base of my tibia right here and pulls it, makes it straighter. Okay? How it gets the best, what we call angle of pull, is because of your kneecap. So your kneecap makes the tendons go off of your body and has a better angle, so this bone, your tibia, can actually pull and go straighter. Have you ever tried to pull a rope or a hose? You know, whenever you pull a hose and it's like kinked around the corner and it's like, oh, it's so hard to pull and you just really can't get it to go. But if you come off of that corner just ever so slightly, then it pulls just fine. It wraps around, unless you're on a tire, then it's another different story. We'll talk about that another time because that's just annoying. But if you come around off that corner, you pull that hose and it actually gets a better pull from it and you can move it. Same thing here. Your kneecap is made so it pulls that hose just off that edge of that corner, and so it can actually have a better effect on what's happening to your leg. And so it can straighten it better. Now, key within that is that whenever you use your quad and you're using your kneecap then gets smashed down into your knee joint. It's supposed to. It's mechanically built that way. That's why it's wedged at the bottom and smooth at the top. And so it can wedge its way down into your knee and be nice and secure and stable. But what happens is if you overload that, if it's too much pressure, if it's not supporting you well enough, do you guys just see I almost fell over? So if it's not supporting you well enough, then it's going to cause pressure issues from that kneecap into your knee joint. And it can cause some cartilage damage on the back of that and some other nasty, not fun stuff. And so whenever we think about how we're standing up on the bike, if I just stand where I'm here and where I'm weighted through my quads through that, then I'm using mainly quads to help hold me up, a little bit of glutes. But if I bring my chest down with it, then I can actually use glutes with quads as I'm in this low stance. Last week we talked about how moving and getting up and straightening those knees a little bit is super important. But it's also super important that you're not here as you're moving through that position, through here, that you actually get your chest over top, that you get that chin directly over that stem. And obviously it's going to move here and there, but that you're really getting that hip hinge to go further. And that's included whenever we're going a little bit lower. Does everybody see that? Does everybody understand that difference of getting your chest down versus just getting that knee bend? So does everybody understand that difference? of getting that chest over top of your front wheel, over top of it, and not just bending those knees. And so you're getting groups of muscles to come in and play versus just stressing out your quads. And that stress to your quads will, one, fatigue the holy shit out of you. It'll really make you tired because you're just using one group of muscle. But whenever you are getting more into this position, even though you're low, you're still maintaining glutes and hammies working for you, as well as your quads. And then as you get into a less steep section, then you give those knees a little bit more straightened, but you're still over top of your front bar. You're not chest up and forward and then trying to get forward and back. Because I bet a lot of people end up squatting low, but their chest is up a little bit, instead of getting more into this horizontal position for it. And another thing that I haven't talked about yet is knee position. So I talked about bending a lot, but what about in and out? I think a lot of people that have had knee issues in the past, the ability to go in and out is pretty important. And understanding why it's important is key as well. So if I have my knees here, can you see my knees? Yeah. And so if I have my knees here and they drift inwards and then I try to bend them, you see how it kind of kinks them a little bit? They don't really like it. If you are watching this, if you can stand up, let's get moving a little bit. If you can stand up, put your feet about hip width apart. Now turn your knees towards each other and bend and straighten your knees. Knees together, bend and straighten those guys. It sucks. Don't do it for long. It's terrible. Because it doesn't mechanically want to work that way. You know, I talked about that, the kneecap being kind of a peg on the bottom and then rounded on the top. Well, whenever you move your knee inwards, the mechanics of that are not straight. They're putting pressure on one side versus the other, and it's really not fun. It doesn't feel good. But whenever we're straight with our knees, now that you're standing up, now just do a nice little knee bend, nice and straight. So keep those knees pointed straight, just like if you had laser pointers, pointing directly off your kneecaps. Just bend and straighten those guys. Feels a ton better, doesn't it? And this is not even using more glutes. This is literally just a knee bend here. Feels a lot better than having them knees in. Now I want you to do thing and have the knees pointed out a little bit. And so it still feels a little funky. You're like, I'm pliating here, guys. But it feels a whole lot better than going knees in. So another reason why is because as you rotate out, your tibia and your feet, so your legs and your feet, have the ability to roll out with you better. So then it can make your legs stay more in line, and then that kneecap, that peg on the bottom of it, can glide and fit into that joint better. It feels a ton better through that. Oh my gosh. So when we talk about position on the bike and movement, has anybody ever hugged their saddle with their knees? Anybody ever gotten their control by getting their saddle a little hug with their knees? They feel where they are in space with their legs. Now can you see why that's probably not the best idea? And also why it can cause more knee issues? Yeah, you can feel a little bit more secure because you have another point of contact with the bike versus just your feet and just your hands. But it's really not good for moving that bike underneath of you. It's also really not good for the mechanics of your knees and for getting your hips to work. So one thing, whenever we rotate our legs out or even keep them more in line, is that our butt works better. Our butt works so much better. And so we want our butt to work, as I said, to help group in the muscles, have a lot of team players versus just your quads. I want glutes, I want hammies, I want quads along with all those. And so all these guys come together, and that's what helps you mechanically work the best. So if you're on your bike, if you're rolling down and you squeeze that saddle, then I'm not going to be able to move that bike underneath me too much. See how it just makes my entire body move now? Versus if my knees are in line, pointed straight out, or even just slightly out to the side, laser pointers pointed out, then I can move that bike a whole lot. And you see how my hips don't really move too much. Moving it with my arms, so my arms are moving it. Versus here, the entire bike changes how I move. And I don't want my bike changing how I move. I want to move on my bike and control my bike. I need to be in charge. And so how you do that is you make those knees nice in line, point laser pointers forward, or just slightly out to the side. Get those butts working for me. And that's how you make sure that your knees feel nice and secure. They're nice and happy then. Because then your glutes can work, your hammies can work, and mechanically wise, you're not putting stress on that peg on one side or the other and putting a stress point inside your knee. Because nobody wants that. I had this one old lady, oh my gosh, we were working on her ability to stand up and sit down. Basically like a squat. And every time she sat down, she was so driven that she would sit down like this. And I was like, honey, we got to get you to spread your legs. And she goes, oh, Liz, I can't do that. I'm like, why? Why can't you do that? She goes, that's unladylike. So I need you to be a little less ladylike. Keep those legs apart, knees pointed forward. Do not be ladylike and put in those knees and cover yourself up. Let's spread them up. Let's make sure there's some space in there so you can move that bike around. I know you guys remember that now. All right, so the exercises that we're going to go over today. All right, so first exercise that we're going to go over, I'm going to pop these shoes off. Hopefully I don't have to get back on the bike, is the lovely clamshell exercise. You're like, Liz, I've done this exercise. I understand it. Why the hell are you going over it again? Well, it's because it works on that control and getting that knee out and not letting it dive in because you're just getting tired or because you want to have it go there. Also, your glute med, it resides like on the side of your butt, right here. It's super important for what we call our trunk sling. And so it's our control of our trunk all put together. I have another video that's on that because it's a lot to go over in just this setting, included within everything else we're going to go over. But women are notoriously weak here. Why? Because we stand like this. We stand so lazy. I do it too. And as you stand like this, you're just resting on your ligaments, or what I call the straps of your body, the ropes of your body, and you're not using a whole lot of muscles here. Versus being nice and level when I go to one side, now I actually have to work. These muscles actually have to work. So this is going to target those muscles and also make it so you can move those knees and be strong and supported, especially when you're staggered stance on the bike, to make sure you don't get any other IT band issues, other back issues, whole kit and caboodle. So the clamshell, you're going to lay on your side. You want to make sure you're nice and stacked through your hips, okay? So if I had a rod, it's going to go straight through my hips and pin me to the floor, okay? Then we're going to do, your heels are going to stay together, and you're going to raise the top leg up and then lower back down. The reason why the hips stay stacked is because we're separating our hip from our low back, and we're making a hip movement, not a back movement with this. I'm not trying to exercise my back to have rotation start here. I want rotation to be here in my hip. And so you come up and you come back down. You should be feeling this in the side of your butt. If you feel it in the side of your hip, I want you to turn your abs on a little bit more. Or you can take your top hand and press it into the floor and then come up and back down. The reason why my toes are coming up as well is so I don't push down on them as I'm raising my knee up. Because I'll help. Like right now I'm just using my toes, and it really doesn't make my butt have to do a whole lot. And so toes come up with it, and come back down. If you're having trouble using your glute even more, just move where your knees are in space and comparatively, and you'll find that there's an easier angle that will use your glute med, the side of your butt, versus another one. Again, not a back exercise. We're not rocking back through there. Back stays nice and still. Abs are on. You're just raising up that knee. Also, you're not trying to pull that heel in towards you, because then your hamstrings will feel it, and you'll feel it kind of back through here instead of right through here. Perfect. Go to fatigue, and it be freaking great. You'll be like, oh my gosh, what just happened to the side of my butt? You'll love it. Do a couple sets of it. It'll be freaking fantastic. All right, the next exercise that you're going to do, you're going to be standing up for it, but you're going to lean over on a surface, like a counter or a couch. I'm just going to use my bike for it right now. So I'm going to lean over here. You're going to use that same hip hinge that you know from the last video. Kind of tighten this up so you can actually see my body, because I know you want to see my body. I hope somebody smiled for that. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to reach one leg out and come back in. This is going to work your stance leg, because it's not like you're like really super engaged and tightened up your hamstring with it. You're just nice and relaxed through here. You're weighted through your hips. Abs are on, and then you're just going to reach that one leg out and back. And so you'll use the stance leg, the glute med as well, and also glute med on the leg that you're reaching out. If you find that this is too easy for you to do, then you pulse more at the end range, and you don't come all the way back down to let it rest. Same thing, go to fatigue with it, make it work. Do a couple sets of it. You will definitely feel those glutes working. Again, resting over on like a counter, you want to be more straight with it than what I was with the bike. So this is how it would look for the counter wise. Nice and still, stance leg, and then I'm moving out my other leg. And it definitely works right through here. Perfect. Things to think about during this is that your abs are on, you're not moving at your back. Knees are nice and soft. You don't want to feel a stretch through your hamstring as you're doing this. The reason why is because then you'll gain stability from it. I don't need you using your hamstring when I want you to use your butt. Okay? So don't make it a hamstring stretch and then go for it. Make it where you actually have weight through your hips, you feel it, your chest is more over, and then you have something that you're resting your hands onto. Okay? You'll love it. I swear. If you're out doing it right now, fantastic. Again, if you have questions on this, let me know. I'll answer them later. I can't see any of the comments right now. All right. Last exercise is going to be kind of like a side lunge, except different. So, what you're going to be doing with this one, I'm going to leave the camera pointed down so you can see what's happening down at my feet. You want a little bit of a wider stance, and then you're going to lean over and touch the floor right in front of your foot with both hands. And as you do that, your butt comes back, and then you're driving up and forward. Now, your knee is also bending during this, and so this is what it looks like from the side. So feet are a little bit wider, a little wider than hip, and you're going to come down. See, my knee is bending and my hip is bending. And then you're driving up and straight. You'll end up in this straight plane position, and then you'll come down for the next one. And so if you're doing this and you're just straightening that knee, you're not getting that hip all the way forward. And so this works quads and glutes as you get it going. And it's a great way for me to know, it's kind of like a modified side lunge, but it's a great way for me to know that you're using your hip, because in a side lunge, a lot of people will just bend their knee and they won't actually get in and use their glute with their quad. They'll just keep themselves more upright and just get here working instead of actually sitting butt back, chest forward to make that movement happen. Hope that makes sense through it. Your back is staying fairly straight and hinging at your hips some more. And so it's a build on, but it's using that hip hinge with your knee bend. And so you understand how to move more through the range when you're on your bike. Move more through the range to help when using your hips and your quads together, and your hamstrings and all the rest of the jazz of your calves and everything too. Hope this makes sense, but none of this is supposed to hurt your back. It's supposed to make your back actually feel more stable and together, and that's the use of your core. And then as you're doing this, making sure that you're not just using your quads for the last one, and that you're getting that glute engagement for the other one, for the clamshell and for that leg reaching back one. I hope you guys have a fantastic night, and I'll do another video next week. If you have any suggestions, let me know, and we'll be back soon for some more home exercises based towards biking. All right, guys, have a wonderful night.